Good evening and welcome to the Big Debate. I'm your host Iguma Gabriel, coming to you on SEETV on our premises on Ntinda 2 Road in Nakuru. Today on the Big Debate, we discuss the final journey of the Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah, fallen Speaker of the 11th Parliament. His death was announced on the 20th of March 2022. His body only made it to the country on the 1st of April 2022. Since the body arrived, it has been able to spend a night at the home for a vigil. Then it was moved to Parliament, where the MPs had an opportunity to eulogize their fallen colleague, but also have a night vigil. And today, the body was at the Kololo ceremonial grounds for the public to also eulogize the fallen speaker. His body was later flown to Omoro, and he will be laid to rest on Friday, the 8th of this month. Coming up to this point, there's been controversy around the way this whole process has been handled, who has been in charge and what should have been done better. But also conversations have begun on whether we should come up with a standard way or policy on who is buried and how exactly a state funeral should be run. That aside, tensions in the Karamoja region have continued to heighten. People were killed, 5 people were killed, 2 UPDF soldiers and 3 geologists. This brought these tensions into the public eye. What's going on in Karamoja, and is there a lasting solution to this that the president calls a small issue? That's what we shall discuss on the Big Debate tonight. Would like to hear from you, so please communicate with us on social media. Remember, we're using the hashtag SEETVBigDebate. Our guests on the show tonight, 2 honorable members, the Honorable John Bosco Ngoya. He is Bokora County Member of Parliament. Bokora County is found in Napak District in Karamoja Sub-Region. Good evening and welcome to the Big Debate.
Good evening, Gabriel, and good evening, viewers. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. We also have in studio Honorable John Musila. He is Bubulo East Member of Parliament. Bubulo is found in Namisindwa District, which is in the Bugisu sub-region. Good evening and welcome.
Gabriel, thank you so much, and the viewers and the staff here, the cameramen. I must say, I'm from Bubulo in the Bugisu, and I'm Bugisu. Of course, Bugisu stretch from Uganda to Kenya. And I would say, Bebule Morie, Morie Hondolera, Arunariano, and wenzangu kutoka Kenya, na hata wale wa eneo bunge langu, nasema habari jioni. Asante kututazama. But in the Rastafarian way, Bwana Gabriel, I must say Wagwan, His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie. I want to thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, many people know you as the MP who identifies as a Rastafarian.
Yes.
All right.
I am.
In the conversation that we had just before we went on air, I discovered that you were not able to go to Kololo to pay tribute to your fallen colleague. You did not do, you were also not able to do the same in Parliament. So let's begin with you.
Exactly.
Your memories of the Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah.
Yeah, I think, Ndugu, I want to say I'm really very sorry. I should have been one there. I should have been in Parliament. I should have been in Kololo. I was not able because of so many other factors back in the constituency, and my people know. I don't want to announce them here, but they are quite political and almost personal, affecting me, and these are litigative issues. So I couldn't have left my people to come over. I was held up. You know, matters of law, you have no option completely. But Ndugu Oulanyah, I should say Jacob, is known to me in 3 angles. Number 1, as younger people at university at the time, I knew him in 1989. At the time, we would report in October, and we had terms, not the semesters you have these days. And this was the only university at the time in 1989, 88 when we reported in October, and in 1989 we came to know each other, especially during political discussions. He was in law, I was in social sciences, but we used to have discussions, political discussions of Pan-Africanism.
89, I think at that time he was doing economics.
Whatever the case, but
Yes.
we would meet. So, and we would talk, we would invite luminaries, like now retired General Tafire, then Tumwine, and many others who would come to shape us, our thinking of Pan-Africanism and the politics generally. And we coalesced like that in the politics. I am happy that I have come to this level. Just courtesy of those luminaries of the time. They were younger people as well. General Tafire, General Tumwine, General Masiko, all of them. But Masiko was much more younger and much more near us. I have a colleague who was also my tutorial assistant, Professor Mushemeza. We are just almost the same age, but he was ahead of us because he was our tutorial assistant. So I came to know Oulanyah that way. Now, the most spectacular thing which I remember was that Black Monday, when we had about 1 week gone for a sit-down strike. That day, my president, Nobel chairman, and the Honorable Norbert Mao, we were going to call off the strike. Now, all of a sudden, there was a commanding officer, a Mugisu police officer. He should be now quite old, because at the time he was maybe nearing 50. So now that I'm 57, Oulanyah has gone with 57. He should now be very old. He was called Wasukira, I remember, Mugisu. All of a sudden, the commandant and the people started, the policemen started shooting all over. I was in front as students. We ran in this. And now, Oulanyah followed me. Then the two others, Okema and Ouma, were shot dead. But in the pandemonium, of course, you can't know that your friend has been hit. And later on, we discovered that late Jacob Oulanyah had been wounded somehow. That's the first time a spectacular thing happened, and it is vivid in my brains. Imagine from 1990 up to now. I've known it, and I can't forget easily. The secondary angle is when he married Dorothy, our sister Mugisu from Ududa, a daughter to late Nangwale, who was former minister of works in second Obote regime. And of course, later on, our sister passed on. Now, that's how I know him. When I was LC5, we would meet at times at Parliament or in other fora, and we would talk. He would call me Obi or Mohwasi, like that. He knew a bit of Samugudu Lugisu, just like his children know Lugisu very well. Now, our sister, Dorothy Oulanyah, passed on sometime, maybe about 13 or so years ago. And but we have children. The other day when I was in Muyenga in the vigil, my nephew came to me and said, "Uncle, thank you for coming." Before he was flown in, we were in Muyenga. I just went for a vigil at his home in Muyenga. So the children have very fond memories with the relatives of the mother, like us, and whatever. Now, the third angle I've known late Jacob is, of course, as speaker briefly, just a few months as speaker in Parliament. And he would display his expertise, his prowess, as one who knows the law and knows the law to the letter. You don't need to remind him and say, please, maybe look at the constitution or rules of procedure. And whenever he would be in Parliament, you would see all of us MPs, including my colleague here, on tenterhooks. You are going to speak out. He will ask you under what rule. Maybe you are raising up on a matter. Is what rule, or what are you referring to in the constitution? Which article? What not? So that prompted you to either research heavily or be abreast with the law. Everything like that. And now that is the legacy he leaves in the Parliament. Certainly, of course, the new speaker has picked up very well, and Madam, I know she's going to perform well, because, you know, Jacob was like a mentor to her. And in the 9 months or so, or 8 or so, she has been mentored very properly, and I know she will pick up very well.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Honorable Ngoya, if I may come to you, were you able to eulogize the Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah in Parliament yesterday?
Thank you so much, Gabriel, and thank you, CTV, for giving us an opportunity. I was not able to eulogize him yesterday because it was a big house.
It was a big house, and even those that managed, 2 minutes to 3 minutes.
So for me, the justice you have actually done is to give me an opportunity to eulogize him. It may not enter into the answers, but I do it now. I have been hearing about the late while I was at Chambogo University, and followed through. The closest I actually got to him was when we were asked the new leaders after elections, the new leaders of Karamoja, both the LC5s and the MPs had an opportunity to draw an agenda. We said an agenda for 5 years to sort of change or transform the region. And it so happened that he was invited to sort of take us through his own impressions, having survived the LRI war, and how his work was able to shape the northern Uganda to the state in which it is now. And we had a lot of fruitful discussions, both listening to him, but also listening to our discourse and trying to help us put our heads together to sort of jumpstart the region. And that was about around April. Then later on, I had an opportunity to meet him while we were at Chankwanzi together with Musila. He'd popped in to meet the new MPs who were getting an induction, the NRM MPs. And that was one other opportunity for us to be able to interact with him. The third opportunity was when, as members of parliament for Karamoja, we had to go to his office to sort of ask for support, because about that time, the security situation was actually getting out of hand. And for your information, as MPs from the region, we resolved that we would not be able to attend the State of the Nation address, because there was something that was so urgent. One elder was actually killed in cold blood while he had come for a market day in Lorangachora, that is in the Napak district. And as a result of that, there was tension between the Bokora and the Pian, because this elder was coming from Pian, following his cows that were actually rustled. And it so happened that people just rammed into him, killed him together with his son, and also an LDU. And that was the time we actually met the Right Honorable Oulanyah to sort of impress upon him to provide us an opportunity to be able to reach out, to talk to people. He was so supportive. First, he was supportive of the agenda that we had actually set as leaders from Karamoja. Two, he was also able to provide us that opportunity to use the bus of the parliament. Together, the 26 MPs had actually to move to the region, and that was so unique about the entire new leadership. So we had to go to the region. We missed the State of the Nation address, and actually he was able to convey to the president why the MPs from Karamoja had not been present. Oulanyah comes, just like my colleague has actually indicated, as a man down to earth, very human in many circumstances. He would lay low. He didn't look at you as somebody from a particular region. In fact, he was not tribalist. So that's why we could actually walk to him for support as a region to sort of see how we can be able to play our part as legislators, but also see how we can be able to bring the discourse on the ground to parliament. And it is unfortunate that he was able to give us this opportunity and is not able to help us get this discourse into the parliament discussion, so that is a national issue. So, and just like my colleague again has said, he's a man who had law in his hands, but he could not be able to speak from that point of, stature that, I am a lawyer. He made his law useful to us who even don't have law. And he knew much about the rules of procedure. We saw him as somebody who would mentor us, young politicians, young legislators, who are coming from a background, not necessarily law. And so that is the man we actually eulogize. That is the man we miss. We really pray that the Right Honorable Anita, together with the Right Honorable Thomas Taibwa, follow his footsteps in trying to ensure that the House speaks to the realities of the local man, the people we actually have voted to serve.
Right. And since you were in the House yesterday, what are some of those key things that Parliament decided on, in order to keep his legacy going, that you think are important for the Ugandans to know? Because certain times people wonder, is it even necessary to, have a body go to Parliament and have all that time discussing?
Yeah, two things come to mind. Of course, again, like we said, the body politic of Parliament is to legislate. And one of the things was, how do we carry forward this legislative role from a point of research? So one of the things that Parliament resolved, because everybody was actually saying, we need to be abreast as parliamentarians. We need to be inducted. As of now, Parliament has not inducted any new MPs. And so there was a call to be able to induct the parliamentarians so that they understand how business is actually run. Two, there was also a call, of course, to invest a lot on the support from the whole legislators. Remember, we're basically saying we count on the mentorship of those people that are already there. In the House, partially close to about 70% of the parliamentarians are new. And so we rely on the all members to sort of mentor. The second thing carrying forward, which is more really about what legislative role does to the communities, was that Honorable Oulanyah supported a lot of education. And he leaves a lot of people that actually relied on him. So it was alluded as well by the president today when he was giving his address, that there is need to be able to go for an education fund, which will be contributed both by parliamentarians, but also by the state. Actually, the president promised that he would actually also be able to support the education. So there is that linkage, and we're saying there is that resolve to be able to do something for the communities, to be able to do something for the voters, to be able to do something for society. So those are the two things that I really are so vivid to me in terms of eulogizing him and an outcome of the eulogies that we had yesterday.
All right, Honorable Musila, for those who think, such a process is expensive and probably not necessary, what would you say to them?
I think the first thing is whether Ugandans can really eulogize, have sentiments, and have emotions. I have seen proud young Ugandans like you not caring about death. As a Rasta, when you die, you are promoted to another life. So we don't know where we go. Of course, all along we have been accumulating all this life, and we depend on other lives for us to be alive. I've never seen you eating Gabriel, a stone or a cement. You can't. But you can eat a plant because it is a living plant. You can eat an animal because it's living. So we depend on the other lives for us to live. Now, when our life goes, it is promoted to something else. And that is the end. Oulanyah at 57, like me, has been promoted to another life, where he will live millions and billions and trillions of years. You get me right? So, a befitting send-off. I have known a few animals, including humans, who eulogize. If you watch very well, you will see the elephants doing it. And they never forget. When we were kraal boys at the time, I grew up as a cowboy, grazing my grandfather's cows, a big kraal of about 200. in Bubulo at the time. That's the life I've grown up with, and I know my young brother Honorable has also gone through. But the cows can eulogize. If you kill the cow, you will see them come over, smell over the blood and whatever, and then make a certain eulogizing sound. Not these confused cows, but if you go to a kraal, they know how to eulogize, they know how to mourn, by the way. I have only seen maybe goats cannot do that, or a sheep, but at least cows do it. So when somebody says a huge budget is what, I think it is an insult. To me, it is an insult. Now, I see it in around 3 dimensions or so. One is that there is no high-profile person who has ever died in office in Uganda. Whether presidents, vice presidents, or even prime ministers, or speakers. This is what I've seen. So Ugandans don't have memory, don't have history to know what it means with a state death. I think they are categorized into 2: state burial and then official burial. I can't differentiate exactly, but the lawyers maybe know how, and other people. But what I know is that Uganda has never gone through such a process. The Oulanyah death is the first one. We have several speakers who have been in office and they went like that. This is why the 1995 Constitution did not know, the framers did not know that a speaker would die in office. They didn't. I think this is Article 82.4. 82.4. Yes. They didn't know that such a thing would happen. This is why it threw us in pandemonium. This is why it threw us into chaos. I remember I spoke very bitterly when people were openly campaigning. I said no. Yes, while the article really is what I think the lawyers call lacuna, but it wouldn't seem so good for a hair, even in a home, for somebody to be named the hair while the body of the Rasta man is still in the sitting room. It's not good. Anyway, it went like that. It went like that. But it took us a step or several steps backwards, because instead of mourning, Parliament were again campaigning. People came up as candidates. So we must, I'm happy that the president spoke about it and said, you see the lawyers of Africa, they are so westernized. And indeed, he was very right. The president was candidly very right. In the Parliament, we have had so many Lego brains who were MPs. The Ogalos, we have Honorable Katuntu, and many others who have been there for 25 years. Couldn't they have seen this? Even those very experienced politicians who have been in the House for the last 20, 10 or 15 years, couldn't they see that? So this is the first high-profile death in office. In Uganda, I don't remember whether we have had any president dying in office. No. Or vice president, or prime minister, or a speaker. It has not been there. So it is Oulanyah creating this experience. Unlike Kenya, where President Kenyatta, senior, died in office. And many other high-profile people. Unlike Tanzania, where recently Magufuli died in office. Unlike in the US, where some of the presidents, like I think in 1963, he was shot and died in office. The assassinations, yes. Yeah, that is it. That is J.F. Kennedy and others. So, it is, to me, a precedence that people must get organized. And know that Oulanyah has opened the way that high-profile people can die in office. How do you get prepared? Suppose it is the president, vice president, prime minister, speaker, deputy speaker, and many others. How do you get prepared? Do you know when this Muhammad Mandela, I should say, Winnie, died? You saw, just, I think, not really a first lady, but because of the history she had in South Africa. You saw the eulogizing, the mourning. Has it been with Oulanyah in Uganda? The fancy thing in our tradition is whether you as Gabriel, my honorable colleague here, the Bagisu, is music. The best eulogy, the best mourning is through music. Have you seen any Ugandans fabricating music towards the mourning of Jacob Oulanyah? I remember when Princess Diana passed on in a gruesome accident. Immediately, one of the best musicians in Britain, John Elton.
Elton John, yes.
Yes, Elton John. Thank
wind.
you for reminding me the arrangement of the names. You know, he comes out and sings, "She has gone and gone with the wind." Did he have time to put together all those words poetically and musically? What happened to the Ugandans? The best musicians in this country. And one of them is the president of NUP. You see? He should have made a name.
Well, they still have time. Friday. Friday.
There is no time completely.
Friday is when he will
No
be laid
way,
to
you
rest.
will not hear this.
So let's tell the musicians, I hope they are watching
I hope they are
us.
listening.
Please,
Yes.
in honor of the Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah, compose some music and let's keep it positive. I'd like to come to Honorable
Posthumous, maybe.
Ngoya. Well, he did mention the fact that there were conversations, there were debates, there was, anger around the cost. 2.5 billion coming down to 1.8 billion, then 1.2 billion. Public opinion has been that that's a lot of money. How was this resolved by Parliament? And, from the things that you have been able to see, is this figure justifiable? Whether it is 1.2 or it's 2.5 billion?
Thank you so much, Gabriel, for asking that question. I come from a background that remaining human is much more important than monetizing everything that you actually do. It is a send-off. And when we start talking about money, we lose the essence of what we are doing. Just like my colleague John has already alluded, we are looking at this person that has made a contribution to the nation. I know we are coming from a very difficult period where we had the COVID and its impact on businesses, its impact on the livelihoods. And for people to focus on money, probably it's because of that. But I really want us not to lose the reason why we are. We don't have to look at, because when we start looking at money, the money element, just like somebody indicated, when somebody gets lost in the African culture, we make contributions. And the state makes contributions. We also made contributions as parliamentarians. The only unfortunate thing is the state contribution is seen and blown out of proportion. Probably the conversation should have actually been different. Just like we say, it's a sudden death. Nobody anticipated he would die. Everybody lived to see Jacob coming back to steer Parliament. And I really think our conversation should be shaped in that particular manner.
Even the morning of the announcement of his, death, people were still sending messages, and praying for his recovery.
So I really wish that we'd actually take that, because when money element gets into the picture, we lose about all these things that we have been eulogizing by a man who has made a lot of contribution to the state, who has mentored a lot, who has supported education, who has had conversations with people that are more heart to heart. And so I want us to have that particular conversation. Whether it's 2.5 billion or 1.2 billion, it is a figure, and we only need to be able to attach a value to it from the point of what is it doing, rather than why should we have spent this much. I can actually tell you for a fact, if you witness what has been happening, people have been contributing even before the money was actually brought. Before the body was actually brought, MPs were supporting people who had come to the home who are there, sympathizing with the children, who are providing that moral support to all of us. And so I really don't want us to reduce it to the money, how much money has been spent. But let this conversation be, are we giving him a send-off? The next time something like this happens, can we already start trying to refocus and see how it is more engaging, rather than really leaving it to government to be able to contribute a bigger chunk for the money?
All right, two things I'd like us to talk about very briefly in relation to that. Number one, the fact that, there's a history of figures being inflated and times like this being used as an opportunity by certain people, to swindle money. And then the second is the planning. Because the confusion of what exactly should happen, where exactly should this money come from, is it the state taking care of this, or are people allowed to make contributions? So the issue around the planning, and yes, Honorable Musila, if you could go for that.
Thank you. Let me tell you, Gabriel, and the listeners, and the viewers, issues of death, like I said, you are promoted to another life. The cost does not matter. I know you are a young man who must have been reading a lot. You go to Egyptology, and the pharaohs who were buried. I think the oldest should be Ramses II. You Google and read about it, where he was buried, especially in the valley of the pharaohs. Look at, simply give it a cost of the pharaoh at the time, Ramses II or Ramses IV. How much did it cost constructing such a tomb 5,000, 4,000 years ago, and everything there? What was the cost? We are humans. We are humans. Now, the other issue, which you should know, there is no MP, including my younger brother here, who paid less than 500,000, $500,000. And we are 555 members of parliament. That translates almost to 300 million. Now, we are not looking at that, but jumping on the state coffers. You should always well inquire with the money we have contributed. There are those who contributed over 1 million, others 5 million, like ministers. Those of us who are lesser mortals, MPs, most of us, the least an MP contributed was 500,000, $500,000. You could count about 400 million or so. We are not looking at that. Now, what brings Ugandans to suspect that is because we have been misusing public money. Certainly, Oulanyah's death will benefit some people. I have to be very sincere on that one. I have to be very sincere. But the trouble I must prophesy, you eat death money, you go with it. And Oulanyah will follow you, by the way. I must warn, while we are being viewed here. When I buried my mother in 2014, Gabriel, at the time I spent 10 million and over. 10 million, my mother. Of course, friends contributed. I gave the biggest part of the money, maybe about 7 or so million. A villager like me, spending 10 million in 3 days, because with that in Bubulo, somebody dies today, next day you are organizing, the third day you bury. That is what it is. Because we don't have mortuaries, and at the time I think we had not learned of taking Tumbale to keep the bodies. 10 million. Back at home, every MP has people dying. In my constituency, I have 20 to 30 people dying every day. And I may be able to bury like 10. But my voters will call you and say, Papa, MP contribute. What is that money for? These days, burials are very expensive. Back in the villages. And you will see it, that the people are needed. Now, at that level, if you can contribute, What about at state level? So the issue is not all about money. We are looking at the status of the late. Now, the second scenario is what I've nicknamed the tripartite axis. Lango, Acholi, West Nile, members of parliament, when they come up, not to say, I don't think we should name that ring fencing. It's President Museveni who brought the word ring fence. But I would say maybe war fencing now. War fencing or barbed wire fencing. When they say no, the speaker must come from either Lango or Acholi or West Nile. It is for us. I don't know what we the Bagisu would say, because we have nothing. Would we say we now ring fence that all ministers who come from Bugisu should be sent to Karamoja, because we have two of them there, the main minister and then the state minister in Karamoja. They're just there like. So we also, I think, wire fence that, and then the Busoga would wire fence something else. Then I think Western Uganda, especially Ankole region, which is the second biggest in population, should now also war fence that all presidents must come from Western or Ankole region. Now, these tripartite axis, later on the president calls them, before we even go for elections in Kololo. Certainly, they benefit financially. You see that in Gabriel. What feelers does it send to the populations of Uganda? They know it. Even this budget, the real official budget, about 312 million, I think, Honorable, is supposed to be war fenced for MPs from that region. You see it. What is the public feeling? Instead of you are mourning, you are eulogizing, instead of contributing. Yes, you are being contributed to by the taxpayers' money. It sends bad feelers, Mr. Gabriel. And this is why we as MPs are painted very badly before the public. Very badly. I know hyenas are very greedy animals. You know it very well. Very greedy animals. But even when you watch the wild, you don't see a hyena eating another dead hyena. No, you don't do that. They don't. The animals do know they sense. A hyena cannot eat a fell dead hyena. They don't. I think there must be, we are appearing more than something to do with higher than the gluttonous greed of a hyena, which is not good. The tripartite, I'm referring to the tripartite axis, Acholi, Lango, West Nile. And
the attempt to, ring fence or cordon off.
Not even to ring fence, because a ring is a very small thing.
Okay,
but I think
you went for wire or wall.
And then yes, from the wall fence.
Yeah, but they moved away from that position.
Yes.
And yes, the point is taken that,
yes,
that was not a right thing to do, and it does not build national unity. But on the planning, what would you say, could be done so that in the future, this kind of thing, one, is anticipated, but two, handled, yes, more definitely, more, according to a procedure or a policy that is laid down?
In a flash of a moment, before my colleague contributes, the Oulanyah presidents, and it should be clear, not in law and whatever, there are some presidencies which are made, and like the British Constitution is not written. So, but the Oulanyah presidents, now that late Jacob Oulanyah has set a precedence, many others are going to follow. I want to prophesy. Many others are going to die in office, maybe even very high profile. So as a country, we must now get tuned to the same. I'm just only being a very good and a fair prophet to this country, so that we know that we must arrange, there must be some little money somewhere in our coffers, knowing that anything can happen again. But two, to prepare the psyche of this country, That is not about money, it's about somebody passing on. And we mourn, eulogize. As a country, we come together.
All right.
We have not displayed that before the world that we were mourning.
Okay.
Now, apart from the flags flying half-mast, that is all. We did not show the world that we were eulogizing and mourning late Jacob Oulanyah, the speaker, the first to die in office. Thank you.
Honorable.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. Again, I think I really would wish that this conversation continues. This conversation should be brought to the public domain.
Yeah.
What is this that needs to be done as we amend Article 84?
82.4.
82.4. What needs to be done in case such a thing happens? So that this conversation is taken to the amendment of this particular article. Two, it's just like you had this questioning about the value. It's really about the value system. Our value system has actually gone. There is nothing I may be proud to say is Karamojong. There is nothing I may be proud to say is Mugisho. You can be proud to say it's Madi. Our value system has actually gone to the dogs. And we need to be able to see how this Ministry of Ethics and Integrity can help us salvage something out of it. When you actually talked about that, and I remember Honorable Nandala Mafabi eulogizing the man, right, Honorable Oulanyah. And I want to quote, Jacob has died, and we are all going to die. I am very sorry to hear people clamoring for money. In our culture, we contribute money to send off people, and not to eat. For those who are clamoring to eat, I am asking God to call them and go with him. The point is that those who look at it as an opportunity, I think are losing the value. That's like I say, we have lost a person, and this person has been so dear to us. There are many attributes we actually cherish.
Yeah.
And it is those attributes that we want to celebrate, not in the money that we actually contribute as individuals or as a state, but really in that art, the art of giving. It's a Lenten period. I'm a Catholic. There is that. Why is that art in giving? Why is that art in the contributions that we make? And it comes to mind that there are certain things, you may not be Catholic, you may not be believing in God, but if you do something that actually affects a poor person, they normally, for us in Karamojong, they say the tears of that person will actually cry on you.
Exactly.
Yeah? So you don't make benefit of something that is so frail to talk about. Just imagine doing a business on the dead. It's not it is unheard of an African to start thinking about it. You could actually do a business, but let it be an ethical business, not a business where you're actually trading on dead people, for instance, or wanting to kill to be able to make money. That is obscene, that is immoral. So it's actually about that discussion that we need to be able. How do we rebuild our values so that when you are in office, you are serving people, you are not amassing wealth? How do I work in the studio in such a way that this message reaches out, information reaches out so that people can be helped to make a decision? So I really think if we go to that level, then we would have actually moved a notch higher from just the money bit into how do we do it so that it can actually serve the purpose.
All right. We need to bring this segment to an end and come to the second topic on, what's happening in the Karamoja region. But it's important for us to talk about the health sector and the fact that this has been spoken about on local media, but also international media as well. Just the image of number 3 of a country dying while seeking medical attention in a foreign country, because that condition and similar conditions cannot be handled in country. Yeah. At a time where we're coming out of COVID-19, that showed us that we have to have facilities that can take care of our health locally, because a situation can arise where you cannot be airlifted. what have we learned? And as, you know, yes, you're legislators, but you also appropriate the budget. What has Parliament learned, you know, from this situation?
Thank you so much, Gabriel, again. Things happen so that we learn. And I am very sure that, again, yesterday the conversation just after the eulogizing went into investment in the health sector. And there was a motion to sort of support the purchase of this machine for cancer screening, which was actually bought by Parliament. And there were timelines given to the Ministry of Health to sort of ensure that that equipment is actually purchased and installed. I think 6 months, within 6 months. So again, like I said, the discourse is about how we prioritize, how our priorities reflect the allocation. And so it is something that we are actually saying. Of course, nobody has resources to actually deal with every emergency as it actually comes. But just like you talked about planning, we are in the budgeting circle. And committees are sitting to try to sort of prioritize so that we're able to right the wrongs of the previous year. And so that conversation is there. How do we ensure our health sector is responsive to things that would have actually been able to call the external world or go for Western medicine or something like that. So again, that conversation is there. And I believe it will actually be able to work through this budgeting process.
All right. Honorable Musila?
I want to say, before Museveni, we had certainly I think two national referral hospitals. But the most known was Mulago. Nobody points at Butabika frequently. Although I asked the minister, Honorable was there, when I said, yes, we now have 5 referral hospitals, national referral hospitals, and 15 regional referral hospitals, which was not there. They have been built during this regime, by the way, the additional ones. Now, I said, but we still have only 1 national psychiatric referral hospital at Butabika, when people are getting mad every other day because of so many other issues.
And mental health has become quite an issue.
What?
Mental health has become quite an issue.
It is a big one.
With
it's not a big one.
Yes.
And I'm sorry I'm not biased in any way, but I think the worst is around the Busoga region and the Jinja City. Are you aware that Jinja City has the biggest number of mentally unhealthy people? I don't know whether you have done that kind of...
No, I am not aware of that.
You can find out that. But it is the city which hosts the biggest number of mentally unhealthy people. So I have my own research, and on the record, by the way, and I can defend myself. Even in Parliament, I said it, and the people laughed. Even the Speaker laughed, but that's what I mean. Now, the 5 national referral hospitals, at least about 3 or so, have been built during this regime. 40 years now, ending by 2026. The 15 regional referral hospitals have been built during this regime. I mean, over 10 of them. I have to be candidly very right, and I mean to you, during this regime.
Which are those? Because I know Mulago
yes.
National Referral.
Yes.
Yes, there's the psychiatric one at Butabika. Which
Yes.
are the other?
The other, Kirudu and the others, I think. Okay, I cannot name them offhand,
okay.
But that's what we have. That's what we have today.
Okay.
And of course, all of them concentrated around Kampala. Now, my Gabriel and the listeners, the viewers, you cannot do everything in a flash of a few years. Museveni has been around now coming into 40 years. Colonialism was here for 70 years. So what happened? I am aware the standards of the hospitals at the time. In 1969, when Obote was shot as a president of this country, he was taken to Mulago. I'm aware of that. Many times Amin would go to Mulago for his treatment. I know that one. But where we have reached, I saw members of parliament referring to Aga Khan in Kenya and whatever. They are very right. Little they know that the vice president of Kenya, my tribe called Wamalwa Kijana, died in Britain. Yes, the Aga Khanis were there just a few years ago, I think around a decade ago. He died in Britain. Whatever you do, just like Jesus said, and I want to quote vividly when one of his disciples called Judas Iscariot said, you know, this perfume is so good, we would have sold it. Why waste on you, especially massaging your legs? And Jesus said, you will only serve the poor. This is Africa, we have the poor. I am happy, Gabriel, that poor people don't frequently get sick. Do you know that? God has a way of protecting them. It is the affluent, our type, who get and need such services outside this country. The very many poor, the tens of millions of the poor, God saves them in one way or the other. Now, I want to say this hype that Uganda has done nothing, you know, it is Kenya, I am from the border. I know how many people have flown out of Kenya to other countries, especially either India, Britain, or America. I know them. The other issue, the tranquility in Kenya, while we had the chaos here, most of these international NGOs and the businesses and whatever, and the partners build all their facilities in Kenya. Aga Khan, yes, it is in Uganda. It has also hospitals in Uganda, yes, but not to the standards of those in Kenya. The Daily Monitor, which is the Akagan branch, and the NTV and the others, it started in Kenya. They are just only coming to Uganda of recent under this tranquility, political tranquility and the settlement. So I want to say, we shouldn't appear so pessimistic about our country at all times.
All right.
Let us be patriots in one way. What we can do, yes, they can pride of a good health system. I know we don't have a good one, but we also have issues which make us proud. Do you know, Bwana Gabriel, that we are a basket of the region here? We are a basket of the region, or maize. You need only to see when we harvest beans, maize, and whatever, and you see the whole region, whether Southern Sudan, Congo, Rwanda, whatnot, coming to us. So we have, yes, that one is a problem really, and we need, and I must say, as a legislator, we need to think about it seriously and do most of these things. But we cannot do them in a flash of a few years. Thank you.
All right, let me just read here. 5 national referral hospitals in Uganda: Mulago Hospital, Botabika National Referral Hospital, China-Uganda Friendship Hospital, Kawempe National Referral Hospital, and Chirudu National Referral Hospital. It is added here that all 5 are situated in Kampala, in the central region. All right, excellent. I'd just like each of you to close on this, you know, Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah issue, because we'll go for a break, and when we return, we will switch to another topic. So just a minute for both of you. I will start with you, Honorable Ngoya.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. We mourn a statesman. We mourn a man that has contributed a lot to this country. And I want to be able to invite all Ugandans, but everybody who, in one way or another, has been touched by Oulanyah, to pray for him and to pray for our country, to pray for our legislative arm, the parliament, that we may be able to emulate what he has done. And for us who are parliamentarians, that we may be able to walk the path that Oulanyah has actually walked.
All right, thank you, Honorable Musila.
Nazareth was the most insulted region in Israel at the birth of Jesus Christ. And Jesus came from there. Omoro could have been forgotten. And the Oulanyah Jacob came from there. The Bagiso have a saying, the bank of a river, where it passes, even if it ceases to pass there, at one time it will pass again from the same. We have had so many leaders from the north, including, of course, and the Tito Okello, the Olara, or whatever Okello, Obote and the others. And they fall in their footsteps. Waswahili wanasema alifuata nyayo zao. He is gone. Another one will come at one time. And Jacob, you have gone, like Elton John said, gone with the wind. Your spirit lives on, lives with the parliament. You can imagine that Jacob makes it, to me I would say, illuminous or a luminary of everything. One of the best eloquent oratory speaker. And he makes it even during his death, that he is the first to die in office. Rest in peace, Jacob.
Rest in peace indeed. We have to go for a break at this point. When we return, we switch to another topic. Please stay tuned.
Love sports? We do too. We got you covered. The Sports Dish, your daily lunchtime sports show that serves the intrigue, breaks down the act, and gives you an in-depth analysis of the odds. Who's going up? Who's going down? Catch all the thrilling action right here on the Sports Dish with Clive Chazé. Now showing on CTV. Don't blink. As we embark on a journey to realize our full potential, we all need expanded minds and limitless possibilities. We need to be accurately informed. CTV is your growth partner. With reliable, in-depth news, we tell the story from all perspectives. We bring you the story in real time. Catch our comprehensive daily bulletins in Juba Egolobye at 7 p.m. and PM edition at 9 p.m. CTV, don't blink. Mahatma Gandhi famously said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." We all have the power to change the way we feel about ourselves, others, and the world at large. The Impact is an interactive, social, and empowering platform that showcases how different change drivers have transformed community livelihoods. We bring you real-life stories of hope, resilience, change, inspiration, and bringing stakeholders to account. The Impact. Now showing on CTV. Don't blink.
We entertain you. Ngawe tukuwata. Amanya shamimanja omubwatu President Gabriel Mokaga akabone record. Nanga wento naliya nafuka ikankomya aliya one but tikutemo olwaleero.
Ali tubasuubiza ntugenda kubanga tuli mu bitundu ebyenjawulo.
Ani yayambadde obulungi. Kakoye ki akazze ku mulembe. Ne gown ya black erina tiara ya black.
Tiara.
English of my kind. Tiara.
I feel the beat.
You feel the beat?
Yeah.
Olokwa bakute ekigendo bo feeling the beat. Show bagiyita situations ko ground. This is a buffet kyagala kyoliyako.
Beera ko CTV totemya.
Don't blink.
Now showing on CTV. Don't blink.
Welcome back from the break. Thank you for staying with us here on The Big Debate on SEETV. I'm your host, Iguma Gabriel. There are many ways of accessing SEETV. We are on Star Times, we are on Go TV, but you can always go to our website, www.seetvb.co, I believe .ug, and on our website, look for live. The red button once you go to the website live. So wherever you are, as long as you have an internet connection, you're able to follow the broadcasting here at SEETV. We started the show today with paying tribute to the Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah. Now would like to switch to our second topic for the night, but I will remind you of who our guests are. The Honorable John Musila. He is a Rastaman, the MP for Bubulo East constituency. Also, we have the Honorable John Bosco Ngoya, who is Bokora County Member of Parliament. This is in the Karamoja sub-region. Well, about 2 weeks ago, 5 people were unfortunately killed in Karamoja. 2 UPDF soldiers and 3 geologists, one being an intern. This incident just brought into focus a situation that had been going on in Karamoja, insecurity that had been going on for about 2 years. And yet, public attention had not been drawn to the situation. After this death, well, a lot of attention has now moved to what's going on there, and the leaders are complaining that steps that should have been taken a while ago to avoid these unfortunate deaths, cattle rustling, were not taken. Well, Honorable, let's start by receiving an update from you. What exactly is going on in the Karamoja sub-region that is being referred to as insecurity?
Thank you so much, Gabriel, and thank you, Vias, and thank you, SEETV, for providing us this platform to tell the world what media has not been able to know about what is happening in Karamoja. Just like you indicate, this conflict has been there since 2017. It started small, but it was referred to as isolated. And in 2019, it actually escalated. It started from a grazing area called Kobebe, where 3 or 4 communities actually graze. The Turkana from Kenya, the Dodoth, the GA from Kotido, the Matheniko from Moroto district, the Bokora partly from Napak. And just like I said, it started small, but security didn't look at it as something that could take a lot of their effort. And of course, I must state that as a leader from Karamoja, I don't condone criminality. Just like the rest of my colleagues do not condone criminality. A lot of effort, at least from the local leadership, has been invested into the situation as it is obtaining on the ground. We have had several meetings, both with the president. We have had a lot of meetings with the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs. We have had a meeting with the high-ranking officers in the military, that is the UPDF, a couple of them. We had a meeting with the First Lady. In addition, we have had several meetings, even at the community level. As parliamentarians of the region, but also in conjunction with the LC5s, I remember telling you we had an agenda setting workshop or meeting just before we actually were sworn in. And in that agenda setting workshop, we realized that if we dealt with 5 pillars, the situation in Karamoja can actually be salvaged. One of the main pillars is defense and security, just because of what was obtaining. And we had a lot of things that we actually detailed could actually be done in that area. The second pillar is leadership engagement. Once the leaders buy into something, they are able to replicate and actually reach out to the community. The third is community mobilization. The fourth is sustainable peace and development. And the fifth is communication, monitoring, and reporting. It is as a result of this conviction that we actually threw our weight. And just like I indicated, we had all these meetings, some in Moroto and across the region. We actually moved. We had a peace caravan that we started around June the 24th, thanks to the late Oulanyah, who actually granted us a parliamentary bus to actually move through the region, only 26 of us. And we also engaged the military. We engaged the RDC's office, we engaged the LC5s, all the LC5s. We reached communities to talk to them about the fragile situation. As I talk, the security situation is, I could actually say, to catastrophic proportions. We are looking at the 3 geologists that died and 2 UPDF. But I can tell you it's on record. In the last press statement that we actually held on the 31st of last month, about 3,000 people have actually died. And the statement of Plaige the last time round was actually talking about 309 put out of action. And it's about criminals, but they are not talking about the local people that have been dying all through. As I said, media has actually been silent. It is something that was let to happen. The Karamojan were dying, but it looks like Uganda was like saying, let them die. I must say that as the leadership, and of course we have always had these excuses by the UPDF, that the leaders are not doing enough. Kulaiji actually stated it, and the last time Ronald Kakurungu, who is the spokesperson of,
Deputy spokesperson.
Yes, said MPs from Karamoja should get off the TVs and get back home. The problem in Karamoja is not exactly a military one. I think it's a failure in leadership back at home. I've already alluded to you the many things we have done, even before being sworn in. The many engagements with the military, the many engagements, even with the first person in this particular country. We have held.
And if I remember correctly, from the meeting with the president, there were, action points.
Absolutely.
I forget how many, 21 or something
there were
like
21
that. 21 action points.
Directives that were actually made in the meeting on the 24th of September 2021. Deployment at sub-county level was supposed to be done. Mobility of intelligence, surveillance. I can tell you, Gabriel, it is a decimation of an entire group. And as a result of the security situation, you are seeing a lot of street children around. The thing that actually was supposed to be for Karamoja alone now is extending to the neighbors. Just because we have not put off the fire that has actually been there for the last 3 years, we are now feeling the pinch. Only yesterday, there was this, and today, I think, there is this talk about displacement of people in Kapelibion. But that is half a story. What happened actually 2 days ago was 3 young men were hacked to death in Kapelibion.
Do you know who hacked them to death?
And again, it is our neighbors, the Iteso. As a result of the dry spell, the only place where our people can actually be able to find water and pasture is actually to the neighborhood. So many of our kraals have actually moved towards Kapelibion. It is not the leaders moving them. The local communities have an engagement with their neighbors to allow them to be able to graze and water their animals. So this one unfortunate incident was one border man carrying 3 young men to the kraal to go and get a cow to sell because of the distress that is there now. So because there was no agreement between this young man, borderman, with these guys who are actually being dropped, they disagreed on the amount of money that was paid. And it was already getting late. So these guys were abandoned somewhere before the kraals. And because of the kind of animosity that exists, they were mistaken to be raiders. They were lynched and axed. 3 of them dead. Lopuli Jeremiah from Kalesa, which is in Lopei. Lokut Oduka from Lomokori, which is in Peitolim. And Udon, 3 dead. 1 elder, Achia Lobian from Kokorio, was actually beaten and maimed. He was actually carried to the hospital by the LC5 chairperson. His son was actually beaten. And this is a situation where we rely on our neighbors in distress. But our neighbors, because of the kind of thing they actually talk about us, they actually mistake, and criminals take advantage.
All right.
So that is what actually happened. So we are basically saying it's not about the leadership. It is about the security agency sleeping on duty.
All right. I'm going to come back to you because I know it's very hard to summarize what's been going on for years into a few minutes of an introduction. But I will come back to you to just, farm up on some of those aspects. But I need to state at this point that we did give or make an invitation to, voices in government. We started with the Ministry of Karamoja Affairs, and we were informed by one of the ministers that it has been agreed internally that this issue should be discussed by security. And we did reach out to security, and unfortunately, we don't have them on the show. And probably in our news, which you should be able to follow 9 p.m. every day and 7 p.m. for the Luganda news, we will get their side of this debate. But today we do not have them on the show, but we did extend an invitation to security forces and the people that speak for security forces. I would like to come to you, Honorable Musila, for first of all your analysis of what's going on in the Karamoja region. And you come from the eastern region,
yes.
How that is affecting the neighbors, but also the nation at large, if at all.
About 3 dimensions, and I will look at the colonial history, then the disarmament history, and again now the rearmament of Karamoja. Gabriel, what is the difference between rustling and stealing? Back in the 60s, especially mid and the late 60s, it was my tribe, the Bagisu, raiding from Karamoja. And we have songs and history about it, especially in Namalo area. That was Bugisu almost. Now, of late, of course, from around 1970s onwards, it was the other way around. Bugisu, as neighbors, have suffered more between this conflict, whether stealing or rustling. And to be very sincere, Bugisu has suffered the most. Yes, Sebei equally has done that, and Teso. But back to our history, the moment you don't trace the roots of history, you miss the point. All of us have been marauding pastoralists, whether Mugisu, Sabine, Itesot, or anybody. And this has been rife, and it is all over the world, especially what the colonialists call, or rather the Western world would want to say, tribal people. Yes, we still have such tribal people in other continents, but more so in Africa. When you see West Africa, the Sahel region, you can see the same kind of characteristics. Just of recent, you have seen what was happening in Nigeria and those parts around there. During the colonial times, as an investigative journalist, Gabriel, you go to Katakwi district and ask for the colonial camp at Magoro, a place called Magoro. You will find it there, built by the colonial government to have these IDPs kept there. This camp is grass thatched. I visited there sometime over 10 years ago, And I appreciated what was going on during colonial times. Amin, fresh from Mau Mau in Kenya by 1950 to 55, comes back here. The colonialists sent him to settle Karamoja. Of course, at the time, the communities, whether Bagiso, Ite, Sote, or Rosabin, were almost equal, raiding each other. You see that? Counter-raiding and counter-raiding. And within Karamoja itself, my honorable colleague has just told you, you know, when we look at Karamoja, we think it is a homogeneous, everybody is Karamojong. That's not the case. The Bokora, the Pian, the Madeniko, and many others. But there is a section of the Pokot, and they know, especially when you go to the border, towards the border, especially these what Kadama Hills or whatever. Now, I want to say this categorically. It is a double way. It is a double way. Gabriel. Those who raid, where do they get the bullets and the guns?
Actually, that
it is Museveni who has, for the first time from colonial times, all regimes failed. I mean, when he was sent there, I was talking about this. Let me remind you again. In the 50s, and I think in the 50s, the best solution was to circumcise the marauding young men who were raiding all over. So he would circumcise them, and they thought he was solving the situation. He didn't, until when the colonialists recalled him. The other governments, subsequent governments of Obote, Amin again, and many others failed. Actually, what brings the guns to Karamoja is Amin.
So failed to disarm them.
Yes, they failed.
Right.
It is only NRM and Museveni who succeeded in disarming Karamoja.
Okay, first in the early 2000s, I believe.
Oh, yes.
And then this other one that started
Yes,
in
exactly.
2021.
Yeah, of course he failed. You know, I'm talking from a point that I've been baptized with the fire. At one time at Loreng Edward, Kamusalaba, maybe you know Kamusalaba, Honorable. Yeah. When I was baptized at around 7:30 with the fire, bullets all over. I was driving with a colleague. My colleague was hurt, but both of us survived. So I'm talking from a point of real fire baptism. If the Bible says that you will be baptized by fire, then some of us have already been baptized in the Karamoja. So that apart, while we were disarming in Uganda, did we also cooperate with the region? And more so, Kenya. We left the Pokot, who are never Ugandan nor Kenyan. They have both IDs. Characteristics of both of us who come from the borders. I have my own tribe who are both Kenyan and Ugandan. Already dual citizens before the law even came over in Uganda, by the way. Honorable is here, he can prove this. You can't know whether Pokot is a Ugandan or a Kenyan. No. During politics, they go to vote in Kenya, like now they're going to vote. And when it comes to Uganda, they also vote. The best thing is that they vote for NRM. You see? Now, when Museveni was disarming, little did we know that we should have engaged Kenya to do the same the other side. We left Kenya. Gabriel, I want to tell you, in Kenya, in some parts of Kenya, there are no go zones. I'm telling you, today, it is worse. You can drive very peacefully in Karamoja. I do this on my own researches in Moroto and other places. But in Kenya, there are places, especially in Pokot, where you cannot. It's a no-go zone in Kenya. In Kenya, which we think is a republic, very tranquil, you know, no political problems, no. That's not the case. So while we were disarming in Uganda, we forgot, in the spirit of the East African community, to engage. If Kenya wouldn't, then if Uganda would help to disarm Kenya.
All right, but even if that had not happened,
yes,
they are on the other side of the border.
Yes.
In order for them to cross over, because one of the complaints has been, for example, when the Turkana come to access pasture and water, they will come over with their guns.
I want to thank you, and that is the point I'm driving at. I want to ask you, are you aware that we border people are relatives? The Bagisu of Uganda and the Bukusu of Kenya, according to colonial officer, I think Major Grogan or Captain Grogan, he named them the Kitosi. But these are Bagisu. For example, if you check the name of Musila, my clan is 70% in Kenya. We are only 30% in Uganda. So what do you call us? If I get my relatives coming over here, what happens? Or if I go to them, what happens? So some of these border communities are real families. I'm giving an example of my tribe where my uncles has one wife in Kenya and one in Uganda. Now, but that apart, let me solve this issue. We have disarmed Uganda. Kenya is not disarmed. Now, they are able to cross over and raid. What happens? Karamoja, whichever sub-tribe there, must rearm. And rearm from where? Ethiopia, Southern Sudan, even in Kenya itself, etc. If today I asked my honorable MP here, if the Koromojong was shot and you got the shells, you get me right, the bullet shells, you will get them from Ruero Industries. I'm talking this before the cameras. Let us be very good in investigations. Now, where do they get those bullets then? How do I would rather not where, but how? Because once you know this shell belongs to Ruero Industries, then you must say, how did it come here? I mean, to reach these young boys? Okay.
But because of time, are these issues that have been put to the authorities, and how do they respond to these issues? The issue of, yes, disarming on our side of things, but not disarming on the other side of the border. Number two, where the weapons come from, and the role of the UPDF, not in protecting, but in escalating the situation.
Thank you so much, Gabriel, and thank you, John, for that input. I already indicated that security has been caught napping. And as a result of this, they are basically blaming. Because an act of guns...
Actually, when you look at the statement from the UPDF spokesperson, I don't see blame. I actually see some sort of reassurance, because the statement is titled, "The situation in Karamoja is under control." And I'm sure you have that statement because you had a press conference where you did, touch on the content of this statement.
Gabriel, when you see people die and you hear death every day, you should actually be able to ask questions. Just like my friend John has already alluded to that. The guns are a preserve of the security. And where there is criminality, you go for criminals, but at the same time ensure that the stores of government are actually recovered. Now, where that doesn't happen, you know that there is something wrong. I already indicated to you that from the several meetings we have actually had, there was an attempt and a call for reinforced deployment in areas or pathways of criminals. This was on the 20th of April we had with the president. He basically called for reinforced brigade. He indicated that there should be stopping of movement of livestock at night. Where we have reached is commercialization of this particular conflict. And I think John has already alluded to. Bullets that are actually utilized, if you go to a scene, you'll actually be able to get Nakasongola bullets. Exactly. Nakasongola bullets, where are they coming from, if not from the stores of government? So that means some of these bullets find themselves, some of these criminals get those bullets from the army. I can tell you, Gabriel, nobody's safe. Not even me. Not any leader. We are only using these geologists because they were externals. And perhaps they have not Karamojong. If it were Ngoya, John Bosco dead, and probably any other person, nobody will bother. They will just say it is the Karamojong killing themselves. But security the role of the army is to safeguard the territorial integrity. Where you have Turkana coming into the country with guns, whom do you blame? Where you have the Toposa allying with the Dodos to get guns, whom do you blame?
When Honorable Musila says these are relatives, families split by, you know, a border that has been created by colonialists. Yeah. Therefore, these are people coming back to their, you know, relatives.
I must state that the situation in Turkana is dire now. It's quite dry. And what they do is to rely on Karamoja. But you cannot allow criminal elements. I mean, there was a memorandum of understanding signed by the two presidents, Uhuru Kenyatta and President Museveni, in September 2019. But this memorandum of understanding doesn't have to allow criminals working with guns and actually terrorize the citizens. We have been calling for that. Can we make sure that these known routes where the guns come into the country are actually blocked? Now, criminality is not anything that is acceptable, not even by me.
No.
The section 266 of the Penal Code stipulates that cattle rustling is a crime. Exactly. Deal with it as a crime. If you get somebody stealing, arrest, and ensure that you recover the guns that were utilized. What is happening now is when there is a follow-up, there will be a record of the number of cows recovered, but you don't deal with the criminals that actually have guns. Exactly. That is why there is a problem. Part 4 of the UPDF Act 2005 details operational offenses, and now you need to be able to deal with that. If guns and ammunition are actually getting into the hands of wrong elements, then you should actually be able to pursue them. Criminalizing the whole group doesn't solve a problem, and that's what we are basically making a statement. If there are criminal elements, why can't we be able to deploy appropriate force to be able to deal with it? How can this problem be allowed to go on for 3 years without a firm stand on it until the 3 geologists are dead with the 2 UPDF? There are many others that have actually died prior to that. So that's actually the statement we're actually making. That if the role of security agencies is to protect, defend the citizens, how come we allow 3,000 people to die and we are not doing much to be able to salvage the situation? So that is really what we are basically trying to call. Deal with the criminal elements. A case of Kapelibion, it's about criminals hacking individuals. Now you blow it out of proportion as if there was a raid. In fact, after that, the killing of the 3 people, there was a community from Kanyangareng village from Kapelibion that actually went to the watering point and scattered the cattle of the Karamojong. So the raiding is not by the Karamojong, the raiding is by the Iteso. We are basically asking for their magnanimity to actually take us until the wet season where we actually have water and grass. So that is really why we're basically saying, if there is criminality, deal with the criminality. You don't have to say all the Karamojong are bad.
Not
Go for criminal elements. There are situations where the local community has cooperated and identified criminal elements. Handed over to the UPDF. 2 or 3 days, they're back in the community terrorizing. So who is actually not doing his part? The leaders continue talking to the communities. I told you, since we actually elected, we have actually been talking to the communities, reaching out to the kraals. But we need to make sure that where there is criminality, we are able to put a stop so that the rest can actually be able to breathe. Okay. But you allow criminality to go side by side with the good things that you're actually doing. So they
Honorable members, I'm sure you have heard that part of these raids, this rustling, yes, they have accused the UPDF of having a hand, but leaders, political leaders, business people in Kampala, but also in the region,
yes,
have been accused as well. And, you know, your political leaders.
I want to thank you for that. Actually, Gabriel, the Karamojong are the worst escalating issues of Karamoja. The trade, even before the first disarmament, do you know how many Bantus were benefiting? People have buildings in Kampala out of the blood in Karamoja, in Mbale, in Soroti, and all over. When we know them, we know them. A very old men who benefited from there. You take one gun, you get 50 heads of cattle at first. These guns were coming from Kampala, from Bugiso, from Teso. You see that? These were business people. Even today, that is the case. That's the case. So when we are talking about Karamoja, we are not going to say it is the issue of Karamoja. It is about all of us Ugandans arming and rearming Karamoja. It is the same scenario, Gabriel. When you see younger people, there is the other day I was just giving a handout to a small girl, Karamojong, and I usually give. Then somebody shouted we were in the jam, and somebody shouted, you man, you are the one encouraging these girls. I said, where do they come from? Have you seen any from Western, Central, or whatever region? All of them come from my region. You get me right? So, who brings these children to Kampala? It is people like me and him. You see that? I want, in the parliament at one time, I said this, and when the vice president had given a statement about the girl child, I said, yes, women here, and as parliamentarians, let us do a body check in our homes, in our palatial homes in Kampala, and you will find girls imprisoned, locked up in those homes from eastern Uganda and the Mwaso Karamoja region. I'm speaking this with certain, and I have the facts. Today, if we wanted to go to sugar industries, not factories, industries, whether Kakira, Lugazi, or anywhere, Kaliro, who are those working there? Eastern Uganda. Eastern Uganda. Eastern Uganda remains a hub of slaves. I and him. Slaves. And anybody can use you as pawns or whatever the case. Those of us who are bringing problems to Karamoja are affluent people like me and him. Taking guns, bullets, and everything to Karamoja in exchange of either cows or money or anything like that. You leave alone blaming the UPDF. We must also, yes, while we have mentioned these bullets, they may not be coming from UPDF directly. It could be a cartel somewhere from Nakasongola. You never know. You never know. It's upon the investigators to do this kind of thing. But I want to say, my dear younger man, until the neighboring countries as well disarm in a coordinated way, as we disarm in Uganda, Kenya, which is the most neighboring, should disarm. And yet it is worse there. And these are the people rearming now. If they are coming to raid the Karamojongs, who are armless, what do you expect? The Karamojong will also look around to rearm themselves. All right.
The UPDF says that these issues, yes, of business people being involved and arming, rearming, are being investigated. Issues of UPDF soldiers being involved, especially, defying the directive that, cattle should not be transported without being checked and without the security committees giving, a go-ahead, that those are also being, investigated. Does this give confidence to you as the leaders?
No, and Gabriel, I say no.
It can't.
For how long do you do investigations? We talked about this conflict starting in 2017, up to 2022, and there is nothing changing.
So
how long do you want?
When the UPDF spokesperson just this week says we're investigating,
and people are dying, so how long has the investigation to go while people are actually dying? I only said yesterday, 3 people were actually hacked to death. Every day, by the statistics we actually got, from 2020 to 2021, 14 raids, and an average of 2 or 3 people dying in each of those raids. And we say we are still investigating, something is fundamentally wrong. Gabriel, honestly, like I indicated, there is a commercial aspect to this conflict. And not until we realize we need to deal with that. We call many times for an audit into the conflict of Karamoja. Perhaps the main people making a killing out of it. And the innocent people are actually dying. We in a meeting that we actually had at the division headquarters on the 6th of June 2021, at this statement that some of the leaders are actually involved, we tasked the division commander, Brigadier Balikudembe, if there is any of us among the leaders that you think is actually doing that, is a criminal, why don't you deal with that? Tell us who among us is actually having a criminal record. And the law is very clear. Doing that is a criminal act. So we're basically calling upon the state to commit itself to some of the things that it is. You don't have to wait until the fire reaches the neighborhood. As if the Iteso, the Bagishu, the Lanyi, and the Acholi are more important than the Karamojong that have actually died.
Well, while you're mentioning that, could you just tell us what makes you come to that conclusion? In what way has the handling been different for Karamoja and for neighboring, districts and neighboring tribes, in order for you to come to the conclusion that, it seems to matter when other people are affected and not the Karamojong?
Simple. Look at what has actually happened in the past. This incident of Kapelibeng I've just been talking about, how it has caught the press. This incident that has not been investigated to find out what triggered it. The fact that you have not gone into the core and there are people silently dying, silently tortured in the process, means there is something that has not actually been investigated. And so we're basically, I participated in the disarmament exercise of 2001. I was working with civil society organization. I have a civil society background. There was a lot of engagement of the local communities. Even these committees, they're actually saying they have set for disarmament. They are not there. And so we're basically saying, if you are moving, move with everybody. Yeah? You don't have to look at the people that you want to be able to engage as criminals. You need the hand of the leaders for you to be able to pursue the peace, to pacify the region. You can't be able to look at the leaders as criminals, just like the people that you are supposed to be able to deal with. So that commitment to be able to engage, that commitment to deal with the issues as they arise, is not there. And so that's what we're actually appealing with this media space. That there should be a commitment. Government should walk the talk. Deal with criminality as if it is any crime. It's not about the Karamojong committing. When a Karamojong commits a crime, just the same way as Gabriel would actually be able to commit a crime. The crime of Ngoya John Bosco, because it's a Karamojong, should not be bigger. Because all of us under the law are the same. We should be treated in equal manner. So really, that is what I would want to be able to do. Yeah.
Because of time, we need to start drawing to our solutions. But before we get there, Honorable Musila, some people have claimed that part of the reason as to why Karamoja has stayed, chaotic, is because of value that resides beneath the surface of, the ground, beneath, what can be seen, minerals and, other precious metals that exist in the area. Is there, any substance in those claims, in your view?
What we call local preponderance of commercial colonialists. This is why you see so many NGOs up there. Karamoja basically must be owning over 60% of the gold corridor of eastern Uganda, which stretches right from Karamoja and down to Busia, passing through Bugisu. You get me right? That is one, but plus a host of other minerals. That's why you see those geologists and others there. A lot of geology has been done there, by the way. And I think even some oil must have been
there's oil
cited. In Napaka especially. Napaka coming down to Sironko, Bulambuli down there. And that's number one. Number two, the issue of mindset. This post-independent Uganda cannot solve such a problem, not through mechanical ways. While it is true you must address an emergency in Karamoja in a mechanical way, the way President Museveni, the only one ever since colonial and post-independent Uganda, has been able to at least disarm Karamoja. The second phase should have been the psychological way, the mindset. The mindset first in Karamoja. Which church do you go to, sir?
St. Francis in Makere. I'm an Anglican.
You are an Anglican?
He said he's Catholic and you are Rastafari.
He said I'm a Rasta, but I also go to those denominations. It's called the Salvation Army I go to. Denomination is okay, it's a good deception, we go there. But I want to say, why do Anglicans or Catholics begin with the young? They baptize you when young, and you make vows when young, and they come up like that. So, if we fought the mechanical way of Karamoja, we forgot to address Karamoja in a psychological way. Get all the young, I mean, they put them in schools, in the boarding schools. All of them, let it be a policy. Now, the second type of mindset is what my colleague has said. Do you know that all of us who are Nani-Karamajongs, especially those of us who are Bantu, think these are simply marauding Bagawad pharaohs? Do you know that? Do you know that when a Karamajong dies, he deserves it? They let them kill themselves. That's why there is a saying, we will not wait for Karamoja.
No, we just need to add a very unfortunate saying.
Yes.
That, yes, until Karamoja develops, or we will not wait for Karamoja.
No,
that is a very, very unfortunate saying.
We cannot wait for Karamoja. Can a sensible person of your level of education or a nationalist, a Ugandan, speak like that? What is in our constitution? The constitution is not about articles and clauses and whatever and the 19 chapters. It is about the aspirations, the aims, the objectives of a country enshrined in the constitution. And we have 29 objectives. And one of it is to develop all regions equitably and equally in this country.
Okay, well, very briefly.
Yes.
You've been quoting President Museveni as, you know, no leader has focused on dealing with the issues in Karamoja like President Museveni has. President Museveni says the issue in Karamoja is a small issue that will be solved. Would you describe it as a small issue?
Yes.
It is a small issue?
It is. It is if well handled, and the president is very right.
Is it a small issue in your view?
It is.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It is a small issue.
I would actually say this. If there is commitment, it can actually be done. It can actually be solved. It is just about commitment. And you asked a question that John responded to, and I also thought I should have actually been able to respond. The Karamojong are pastoralists. And perhaps the hype of this death of geologists is making me think you are right. Perhaps let the Karamojong die, and then we'll actually be able to get their natural resources. Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
We, as of now, are basically preoccupied with pacifying. We could actually engage. We will actually be able to engage if you need the natural resources. But you can't watch people dying because you want to be able to get the natural resources. And that is the conversation we want to be able to say. Our livelihood is pasturing. We are pastoralists. We cannot wish away. You can give us crops to be able to plant, but we have had about 3 or 4 running seasons of failure crop. And so this is why people survive, and they want to be able to search for pasture. They want to be able to search for water. They have their own mechanism of engaging with the neighbors to be able to allow them. But if we deal with criminality, it is possible that they can actually be able to thrive with their livestock. Exactly. And so that is what I want to be able to say. And going forward in terms of the call, I'm sure we're moving towards that.
That's what we're moving to, yes.
Yeah, we have, like I said, we have put ourselves very clear to the head of state. Secure, protect, ensure that the livelihoods of people are actually protected. We've called for the protection of kraals. The UPDF should be located around a livelihood. You cannot be able to stay in an urban setting and allow these cattle to be raided by criminals. You follow the following day. It means you're making people, you know, the livelihood is actually lost. So we're basically demanding for the restoration of security. Yeah, deployment to make sure that these individuals can actually be got. We are demanding for an audit of the implementation of these directives of the president. From April last year, there was a directive and nothing is happening and the situation is becoming worse. So we're basically saying who is benefiting, who is allowing this to be able to go on unattended to. We are calling for a removal of illegal guns in pursuit of the criminal elements and ensure that those guns are actually brought back. You don't have to be able to collect the cows and leave the criminals with the arms that they're actually going to use for terrorizing the local communities. That's what we are calling for. We are calling for dealing with the porous borders. Ensure that if the Turkana are coming to Karamoja, they should not be able to come with guns. And it's the security to be able to do that. If the Toposa are coming to Karamoja, they should not be able to come with guns. Let guns remain in their own countries. We don't have as local leaders that opportunity to be able to ensure this happens. But it is about the will of the state to ensure this happens and we're able to deal with the criminal elements within. So really these are the things that we are calling for. And perhaps that's the reason why we're basically saying there should be a change in command. For 3 years, the same persons are the ones who are commanding some of these units. Perhaps they have gotten compromised. Why shouldn't there be a change? Why are we allowing this if the situation is actually deteriorating? The same individuals. So these are our calls. This is what we're actually calling. And we would wish that the world joins us in making sure this happens for us to be able to stop this conflict.
All right. Honorable Musila, you said it is a small issue. How would you suggest it is dealt with?
Small, because we have the capacity as a country under this normal situation to solve that problem. But look at Karamoja as a region, an eighth of Uganda. Now, suppose we had these criminals numbering up to 40,000 and all of them armed. Can't they challenge our UPDF? So you can't sit back and simply say, yes, these are simply criminals, because eventually they can turn around, or any bad element can misuse them. So as a country, you can't just sit back. That's why we must regard it as a small, but not isolated. That is number one, solving our own internal problems. And I'm very glad that the president of this country, the very first, has tried his best. Where all governments failed, where colonial, the colonial government failed, 70 years down the road of colonialism until 1962, when we got independence, they failed. Museveni did it. You get me right? Solution number two, the East African community must be wisely used. You are disarming Uganda now that the Karamoja region may be rearming. Now, if you are disarming, let it be
across the region.
Across the region. All the presidents come up. Southern Sudan, where the guns come from, and other things, maybe part of Ethiopia. Under IGAD, we can use the IGAD arm, okay? Like that. And we disarm together. So solution number three is to deal with those who make the situation escalate in Karamoja. And those of us who think are affluent coming from Kampala, from Soroti Mbale, Lira, where escalating the situation there. Our investigative arm must be completely perfect.
All right.
To follow them.
Honorable, very briefly, aren't there things that should be done internally in Karamoja to help with bettering the situation?
Absolutely. There are lots of things that are supposed to be done. And we had already alluded in the 5 pillars. Community mobilization, the leadership engagement. These are key. And I already alluded to you that we have done it.
Okay.
From June to July, and through to today, we have actually been engaging communities, talking to them, appealing to them to be able to cooperate with the UPDF and the security agencies in identifying those criminal elements. We are doing that. But like we are saying, there should be that other part of dealing with the criminals, using the law as it were.
All right.
Because when you do that, you actually concurrently help the community mobilization and leadership engagement.
All right. Gentlemen, we're out of time, so I will come to both of you for your parting shot. Honorable Musila, I will start with you.
The 2 thematic topics we held today about my brother-in-law, my OB, and my age mate, Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah, who has created the presidency even in his death. That is the first to die in office. I must say, we have over-discussed it in Uganda, but without properly mourning him as a country. I have to be very sincere on this. Let his soul rest in peace. The Karamoja issue should be looked at with national lenses, not simply something to do with a small region. I think that is bad, extremely very bad. We must look at our brothers and sisters in Karamoja. You know, the worst, or rather maybe the right thing about it is that the 2 ministers in Karamoja are Bagisu. The 2 women are from Bugisu. I don't know why the interest. And I think most of the RDCs of Karamoja come from Bugisu. You see? So we want to look at such what I would call disadvantaged regions with the lens that we should build them up. And clearly so. We are not going to leave them to NGOs. NGOs have never helped any country to come up. The chaos we have here is the chaos we have in Eastern Congo. Why? Because the mineral-rich Eastern Congo becomes an attraction to every other world cartels and whatever, including even our own African countries. So we shouldn't look at Karamoja as Karamoja. Let us look at it as Uganda, with the mineral wealth to develop this, the uranium, the oil, the gold is for the benefit of this country.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable Ngoya.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. And again, thank you, CTV, for giving me an opportunity to be able to speak to the world about the conflict in Karamoja. We continue mourning Oulanyah, a great statesman that has actually contributed a great deal. And we hope that as parliamentarians and legislators will actually be able to walk the path he'd actually wished for us to be able to engage. On the tension and the unease in Karamoja, I want to appeal to the media houses to be able to look at the conflict and open more room for an engagement that actually seeks to be able to understand rather than take sentimental statements being made to be able to paint the region as bad, as it were, and the leaders as uncooperative. It is an appeal, again, to the state to be able to commit itself. The security agencies, we applaud you for whatever you have done, but you can do more. And we are willing to be able to accompany you in the process. And to the Ugandans, our neighbors, the Iteso, the Bagishu, the Langi, and the Acholi, fire is in Karamoja. Let us deal with the fire that is in there. And we will definitely, as we have ever cooperated before, support you as well. For now, it is a cry from Karamoja. and we would wish you to be able to join us and support our call for an action on the insecurity in Karamoja. Thank you so much.
Unless every part of Uganda is safe, no part of Uganda is safe. So let's join hands to bring safety, to bring peace to Karamoja. On the loss of the Right Honorable Jacob Oulanyah, what a loss. What a loss. But we who stay should carry the torch on. So our condolences to his family and to Uganda and East Africa as a whole. From the big debate, from our edition tonight, from our two guests and myself and the technical team here at SEETV, would like to thank you for being a part of this edition. Let's continue the discussion on social media. Good night. God bless you. Don't blink.